Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there, to the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, welcome. This is a great episode. I'm speaking with Anne-Kathrin Walter, who lives in the Netherlands, and she's founded HiSensitives, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what that is. But in this episode, we talk about what sensitivity looks like in Europe and the Netherlands compared to here in the United States. Anne-Kathrin talks about happiness and positive psychology, but we talk about how that's separate from ignoring negative feelings, and it really is about making a choice about what we choose to create in our lives. And Anne-Kathrin talks about how the brain wants to keep you in a comfortable place where things are very familiar and comfortable, but we often get stuck in patterns that aren't really working for us, and how she uses gratitude as a tool. And she did a 21-day gratitude challenge, which she talks about. We also talk about the balance between our emotional brain and our logical brain. And depending on what happens in childhood, sometimes we need to move more into our feelings and sometimes we need to move more out of our feelings. Anne-Kathrin talks about the guided meditations that she's used for grounding, the visualizations that she uses to create safety and protection, and a meditation that she uses in the shower, which I just love. We also talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with people that are able to mirror and reflect back to you your strengths, and the daily habits that we create in order to have more happiness and sustainability. Let me tell you a little bit about Anne-Kathrin. Anne-Kathrin Walter is a young, highly sensitive entrepreneur from the Netherlands. In 2018, she founded the brand HiSensitives, which is a brand for highly sensitive people that aims to increase awareness and acceptance of the trait and to connect highly sensitive people worldwide. By diving into the world of positive thinking and changing her own thought patterns, Anne-Kathrin managed to transform her life and dare to chase her dreams. Through the right relationships, a change of direction when it came to her career, and daily self-care, she managed to create an HSP-friendly life for herself. And now, on to the show. Hey, Anne-Kathrin, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here today, and you are coming from the Netherlands.
Yes, I am. And thank you so much for having me today.
I'm really excited about this conversation. We connected via Instagram, and you have a group called
HiSensitives.
So why don't you tell us, the listeners, a little bit about your group and your reason for starting the group, and then we'll go from there.
First of all, I'm a highly sensitive person myself, and I wanted to create a brand for highly sensitive people that creates awareness and acceptance of the trait, and that also connects highly sensitive people worldwide. Because I felt there were so many great resources out there for highly sensitive people, but there was not one place that connected them all. And well, me and my partner, we want to create that. So that's basically our motivation to start HiSensitives.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
In the States, culturally, we don't really value sensitivity. Do you have a sense of how it's viewed in the Netherlands or in the European countries?
Well, of course, especially in the Western countries of Europe, it is really important to work hard. And in this work environment, sensitivity isn't always appreciated. But what I see in Europe is that there's a big work moral. It is very important to work hard, and sensitivity isn't always appreciated. But what I've seen in the Netherlands happening lately is that a lot of awareness is being created around the trait. And this is very positive for highly sensitive people, because now you see more and more people coming out of their highly sensitive people closet and basically telling that they are highly sensitive and not being ashamed of it and being open about it and actually using their strengths for the best instead of seeing it as a weakness. I think that's very beautiful. And also that was a motivation for us to start HiSensitives worldwide, because we want to create this movement worldwide. Sensitivity is a strength, and it shouldn't ever be seen as a weakness, we think. I'm very happy to see how it is going here in Europe. And I hope that also in the United States, it will be like that someday.
Yeah. And I don't really have a sense. Where I draw my experience from is I'm pretty active on social media, and I'm in pretty fair amount of groups that have sensitives in them. So I'm always kind of looking to see what people are sharing and what people's experiences are. But, the other thing I've talked about a lot on the podcast is so many people that are highly sensitive, so many people that I run into have wounding from childhood. And in that wounding, and all it takes is having a parent or a caregiver who's not a highly sensitive person, is we get that message that we're too sensitive, too needy, too emotional, too dramatic, whatever those things are. And people confuse the wounding for the traits of being an HSP, and they hate their HSP traits. And I just was looking at something on social media where, like, if you could hit a reset button and not be an HSP, would you? For me, there's no way I would do that. How about you?
No, never. I mean, of course, it hasn't always been easy to be a highly sensitive person in this society. But I believe that my sensitivity provides me with so many strengths, my creativity, my intuitiveness, my empathy. I think that those all are strengths of highly sensitive people. And of course, people who are less sensitive also do have those strengths, but you see that they are very common amongst highly sensitive people. And I would never, ever want to change that for the world.
I totally agree with you. And so I have such a passion about trying to provide education for the people that have wounding and are HSPs, highly sensitive people, to know that it's the wounding that needs to be healed in order to get to the joy around the traits of being a highly sensitive person. Yes, being a highly sensitive person does come with some drawbacks. I talk about the proper care and feeding of being an HSP. And it comes, like you said, with so many amazing gifts and strengths that we need to tease that wounding out so that we can get to these wonderful characteristics.
Yes, definitely. I think it's very important to deal with your traumas. I've done that too in the past. I've gone to therapy to talk about the things that I've experienced in life. And that was tough. I was on the edge of being depressed at that time. And it was really challenging and very confronting to open up wounds and talk about them with somebody who is a stranger to me. But eventually also there, I found out that I'm highly sensitive. And that again gave me so much perspective on everything that happened to me in my life and why it maybe happened. And it also taught me to learn from the mistakes that I made or to learn from the experiences that I've had. And I think it's very, very important to deal with your demons.
Yeah, definitely. Anne-Kathrin, when did you learn that you were a highly sensitive person?
Well, as I mentioned, I went in therapy to deal with my past traumas. And during that therapy, I finally figured out that I'm a highly sensitive person because my therapist told me to look into it and to see if I identify as a highly sensitive person. And it opened up a world for me. It finally made me realize why I am the way I am. And I did not feel weird anymore. I knew finally that some other people like me are out there and that I don't need to be ashamed of how I am and who I am. Yeah, it was for me a very great eye-opener.
Yeah. What do you think of the term highly sensitive person?
I think it's a good term, but I feel that often sensitivity is seen in a negative light in society. Like if you Google sensitivity, you get the weirdest images of sensitive toes and all kinds of infections. And I don't know, it's a bit a negative light about this term. So I've been thinking about this, and I think a better term might be a highly perceptive person. So somebody who perceives a bit more intensely everything around them. So I think that's a better term. But yeah, I also like highly sensitive person. For me, it does not feel negative, but I can see that it looks like that to society.
Yeah, it's interesting that I don't have a problem with the term highly sensitive person. And I live in a pretty insulated environment. And it's funny that I have a new dentist and I always bring an information sheet when I have a new health provider about highly sensitive people, about the trait, what to look for, and resources that I can offer. And her response was, I don't see any of those people in my practice. And it just stung like, I'm one of those people. And probably 20% of the people that you see are highly sensitive people. But I had that sense of, do I want to step up and educate, or do I just want to let it go? But I could tell just by the way that she said it, that it's like those people. And I thought, just let it go.
Yeah, it did not make any sense to correct her, I guess.
I don't know. And so when I have those experiences, it reminds me of the people that have to deal with the public every day, or have, work situations or environments where the people that they interact with on a daily basis just really do not understand what being a highly sensitive person is, and that sense of frustration of not being seen and heard and understood. And so in that respect, I'm not so sure that the term highly sensitive person really is the most accurate.
Yeah, I think the same. I think if you would say something like highly perceptive person, it sounds so much more like a strength and a superpower. And yeah, I like that. So maybe, who knows, in future.
Yeah.
Although I would have to change my brand name then. I don't want that. So I'm happy with highly sensitive person.
You'd have to get a new tattoo.
Yeah, that too. Oh, it would be so bad. No, please don't change.
So maybe we should let the listeners know what we're talking about. So you have a logo that you designed for HiSensitives, and you love that logo so much that you got a tattoo of that logo, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Actually, at first, I designed a symbol for myself because I felt there was not anything out there yet for highly sensitive people to show that they are highly sensitive in a symbolic way.
Mm-hmm.
Some might criticize, why do you need a symbol? But, you see it with the gay pride, they have a flag. You see it with feminism, they have the female sign, which they use to promote their cause. But I believe that sensitivity is something that still needs to be seen more positively. And therefore, I think a symbol can contribute to that. And yeah, first I designed it for myself, this symbol. I drew it on paper and I shared it with the highly sensitive people community. There were so many people who felt grateful for my symbol. I was so overwhelmed by the response. And actually, that was what motivated me to start HiSensitives afterward. It was a very special moment for me. And the symbol has a lot of meaning to me because of that. It gave me a lot of encouragement and self-esteem. So I'm very grateful for it.
That's great. And what we'll do the day that this episode airs, provided I can remember, why don't I tag you in an Instagram post, and we can get your logo on my Instagram account at Unapologetically Sensitive. So if you want to see this beautiful logo that Anne-Kathrin designed, you can just check out Instagram the day that you're hearing this.
I'm so glad you're offering that. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much.
We'll put links in all the show notes. So if you go to unapologeticallysensitive.com, all of the links where you can reach Anne-Kathrin and HiSensitives, her Instagram and her Facebook group, and on Pinterest, we'll have all of that. So if you want to connect to some of her resources, we'll have all that for you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all of the people who are listening now there. I really hope you check it out, and I can't wait to connect with you.
We were going to talk today about happiness and rewiring your brain through mindfulness and self-care. Can you talk a little bit about what you do and how that came about for you? I really want the listeners to get some tools that they can take home. And so what was it that you saw coming up for you? And then how did you use these tools to help you have more peace and calm?
Yeah, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about positive thinking. I chose to talk about this topic because I felt it has done so much for me. People often confuse positive thinking with hiding away your traumas and not dealing with them and just hiding away all your emotions related to them. But it's not the case. For me, it has a different load. I believe in positive thinking and mindfulness. And that is because last year I had a very tough year. I was stuck in very negative thinking pattern because some negative things happened in my life that were out of my control. A few people passed away. There was a fire that almost burned down my house. It went well, but it was such a traumatic experience. And also I was not very happy with my work situation at that time. And those were all things that caused me to come down into a very negative spiral of thought patterns. Because those things happened shortly after each other, I immediately thought my life is bad and nothing good happens anymore and nothing good will happen to me. I was stuck in a thought pattern, and I did not know how to get out of it. And then I came across the topic positive psychology, and I looked more into it and listened to a few podcasts about happiness. And basically those insights provided me with amazing tools that helped me to get out of that negative spiral and to change my life for the better, and to also create a life that is very comfortable for a highly sensitive person, because I feel that society does not really offer the perfect life for highly sensitive people, in the sense that you are expected to work from 9 to 5 and you are not allowed to call in sick at work, and you are supposed to work even longer than 8 hours or 9 hours. There's so much pressure, and especially for highly sensitive people who need to recharge and who need time for themselves, it can become too much, and basically positive thinking helped me to realize that and helped me to get out of my negative thinking and to make changes in my life that supported my sensitivity, for the better, and that I could make use of my strengths, and that I increased my self-esteem. And all of those things are so important, I think, to thrive as a highly sensitive person. I use some tools. I don't know if you want to know about some of them that I use to change my thought patterns, or...
I would, and I would love to have some specific examples of what it looks like, because I'm not really sure where you're going to go with this. And we talked about this before we started recording, that I think that there is a way that positive thinking can be used where we don't identify our feelings and we bury stuff. So there's a part of me that always feels a little protective for the listeners. So I would love to be able to get some more specifics so that I really know what it is that you're talking about and what it looks like.
My thought is, and that is from researchers that I've read in the past, and that has influenced my thoughts about this topic. And basically what I've learned is that your brain prefers to keep you in your comfort zone. Your brain is made up of patterns, and basically the more you are stuck in this pattern, the more comfortable your brain gets in this pattern, and it wants to keep you in your comfort zone, because there it is safe and nothing unknown happens there. So everything in your comfort zone is under control. And I think especially for highly sensitive people who always are alert and aware of their surroundings, the comfort zone is their safe space, But the thing is, for me, when I was in this negative pattern, I also got stuck in my comfort zone. I did not anymore dare to go out of it. And I just remained in this pattern and did not rewire my brain. And listening to different podcasts about positive psychology and about looking at what you do have instead of looking at what you don't have. So, for example, using gratitude as a tool to examine what is going well in your life and to be grateful for that. That helped me so much to slowly get out of this negative thought pattern. And of course, I still felt bad about the things that had happened to me, like the fire. I still was upset about that. And I still am today, whenever there's smoke, I still feel upset about what happened last year. So the trauma is still there and I'm dealing with it, but I'm not letting it affect my entire life. I choose to deal with it in my pace and at my time when I need to, Gratitude was one way for me to rewire my brain and to get more out of this negative thinking spiral and to look at what is going well, because I did not do that at all back then. And by structurally doing that, I recognized a change in my brain patterns, basically. So when I walked out, instead of thinking, oh, what could go wrong, I looked at, wow, look at everything that's going right. And that increased my level of happiness. So that is one of the tools that I use. I believe that gratitude is an excellent tool to rewire your brain. And for every negative thought you're thinking about yourself, try to think of 5 positive ones after. Try to rewire your brain in a positive direction in order to increase your self-esteem. And when you have an increased self-esteem, you also have more self-efficacy and you dare to go out of your comfort zone and realize change that is needed for you to reach your goals or to chase your dreams or to take that leap into what for you feels like a better life. That's a bit what I mean when I'm talking about rewiring your brain. It's not about hiding away your traumas. Of course, you have to deal with them in order to become happy. But it is about not getting too hung up in all the little negative things that in the end take up space in your energy. I don't know how to word it. I don't know if you know what I mean when I say this.
I do. There are a couple of things that come to mind that I know that, I'm thinking about something that happened that kind of it really propelled me into private practice. I had something really awful happen in the job that I had. And my plan was to stay there until I retired. And then this really awful thing happened and I chose to leave. And I can remember, especially in the morning in the shower, like I would ruminate because so many things that happened felt so unjust and unfair to me. And I can remember being at the gym and like kind of getting stuck in that loop because it was really painful and it felt very unjust to me. So I definitely think that there are ways where our thinking can get really stuck. And I think that when we have very strong feelings, the brain wants to make up a story about why we're having these strong feelings. And I just did an interview with Maureen Healy. I'm never sure which episodes are going to be coming out first or last, but my guess is you will have heard Maureen Healy's interview prior to hearing this interview. And we were talking about children. She was talking about teaching kids to balance the left brain and the right brain, your emotional brain and your rational brain. And her perspective, I think because she works with highly spirited children that are highly sensitive, she's working on getting the kids out of their emotional brain and into their rational brain so that they can stop and calm and make good choices. What I see in my practice is many of the adults that I work with were not allowed to be in their emotional brain. And so they learned how to grow up in their rational brain. So for the adults that I work with, I'm trying to get people back into their feeling brain so that we can feel those feelings and not be so dismissive and honor our feelings. So I think depending on what your background and your history is, sometimes people need more of the, getting into the positive thinking. Some people need to get more into their feelings to get in touch and then creating balance between the two.
Yes. Yes. And I think that is very true also for positive thinking and rewiring your brain. Because for me, I was very emotional. I was always on my emotions and not much on the rational spectrum, For me, the positive thinking aspect got me more into the rational side. So I became more balanced and I still feel, but I don't get overwhelmed by it anymore. And that is something that was for me very distracting and disturbing in my daily life because my emotions took control over my life and they took control over what I did and over my decisions and what I said. And I needed that rational aspect more. So for me, in that way, all these techniques that I stated, just rationally looking at what you have, really did the thing for me. But I can imagine that those who already are on the rational part, they need to find different tools that work for them in order to get in balance. Because in the end, it's all about balance between the two. It should not neither be the one or the other, but those two need to be divided equally. And then I think you will be able to thrive ultimately in life.
Yeah, I love the power of the and Justine Folker talked about that in the episode that she was on. So for me, because my feelings were not okay, I grew up being incredibly logical and analytical and couldn't tell you what a feeling was when I was back in my 30s and had to really do a lot of work. But it's about allowing the feeling to come up. And then if the thoughts around it are not supportive, kind of using the way that a parent would help us to redirect those thoughts. So I was trying to think of a specific example as we were talking. And the best thing I can maybe come up with is that my kids have been home for spring break. And I would think with them going back to college, it would get easier when they leave. It still is really hard. So I get pretty emotional when one of them has already gone back. I get really emotional when they leave, like I have that connection with them and then I feel sad. So it's like, I'm not going to not allow myself to feel that sadness because that's a real feeling. So I get to feel that sadness, feel the connection, know that I'm having these amazing connections with my grown boys now, and that we've done really well because they want to go off and be independent and they're heading back to be independent. And so I can hold space for both of those things without going into a narrative of, I'm going to be alone again and they're not going to be coming home. Like that would be the place where it would not be helpful. But I'd love to turn it back to you. And if you have some specific examples, and I'd love to have you talk about some more tools and specifically what this looks like for you in your life.
Especially, I think in relation to career, my life has changed in the past year. I went from working for a boss for full time to now becoming an entrepreneur and deciding for myself how I want to divide my time. And that is a huge leap for me. It was an extreme step to take. I was so scared to become an entrepreneur. I wanted it so badly, but I was so scared. And my fear was always holding me back. I always thought, no, first do it when I'm 30 or maybe 33, then I have a lot of experience. But at the same time, I was not feeling that fulfilled at my old job anymore. And I was not feeling that I could reach my full potential there. But I also did not want to go to another company and start there. And I just felt so stuck. And I was feeling all the pains from not being happy at my old work. But I was also too scared, and my fear was so big to go into the new situation. And by rewiring my brain and looking at the things that I do have, and thereby growing my self-esteem, by meditating, becoming more grounded and more balanced, also by looking at the people around me and being grateful for them and for their support, I finally grew enough self-esteem to get out of that situation and get out of my emotions and the pain that I was feeling, and just start to do it, even though the fear was there to fail, because I had a big fear of failure, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, I think for me, that was a situation that I was so disbalanced at that time. And through those tools that I used, I managed to get back into balance. And yeah, meditation and also yoga were both very important aspects here to get grounded. And also after the big fire that was happening, it felt, it was funny. It was a bit of a metaphor for me, for my life. The fire basically woke me up, because the scare from losing everything you have made me realize that you should chase your dreams when you have the chance, because everything can be gone within 5 minutes, because that was how fast the fire spread towards our house. And that trauma caused me to change my life. And it sounds very dramatic when I say it like that, but it basically turned around my life. It made me look at my thought patterns. It made me look at the people that I surround myself with, and it made me look at my career. It made me look at the things that I want but haven't done yet. And although it was a very negative experience, emotional, I was really in a trauma for like a month after that experience. But in the end, there came positive things out of it as well, after dealing with the trauma, of course. So that was a very extreme experience for me. And it has influenced every aspect of my life till now. I think that was a good example for me that happened, even though at that time it felt like my life was breaking apart. It, in the end, caused the balance that was needed, and to get more into the rational aspect of my life.
Right. And that's not uncommon. That I think that we live in a place of complacency, which in some ways can be good, because we don't want to be living a stressful existence worrying about tomorrow. But often when there's a crisis or a terminal illness or an accident, it shakes things up, and we reevaluate, wow, if the end of my life were coming closer than I anticipated, am I living the life that I'm wanting to live, and do I need to make some changes? So I think that that's really common. I really want to get very specific. So can you talk about, specific thoughts that come up for you and how you work with those thoughts, or what your meditation practice looks like, so that we really can get some very specific tools for listeners?
Yeah. So for example, at the time where I felt very unhappy after the fire, I was not grounded at all. I was so out all over the place. I was not in balance. So what I did, I found guided meditations on YouTube. They are online for free. You can just type in guided meditation. And a few people around me recommended to do meditations that help you to ground yourself. So I typed in guided meditation grounding. And I found meditations that helped me to, within 10 minutes, to get back into my balance. You basically imagine that you are a tree and you are growing your roots into the earth, and the earth gives energy. And you imagine that your negative thoughts and your pains are being recycled into the earth through your roots. And afterwards, when that has happened, you pull up energy from earth, which is positive energy, and which helps you to become more balanced, and which helps you to be more grounded. And that's a meditation that took about 10 minutes. And I do it now sometimes as well, even though I feel much more balanced now. I still do it on days where I believe it will be a tough day or it will be a busy day. And it helps me to stay connected with myself and not to go too much out of my own being, to please others or to go beyond my limits or boundaries. And yeah, that was a great, great meditation for me to become more balanced. And besides that, also my therapist recommended me to visualize a light around you. And this is very spiritual. I know some people might find this too spiritual, but it helped me. And you basically visualize a light around you that protects your aura and that protects you from all the negative around you and keeps you safe. And also that visualization helped me to feel that I could tackle the problems that were coming my way, And yeah, a final meditation that I also used is a shower meditation, which basically is I go and stand under the shower and I visualize how everything that I'm feeling that is not of use to me at that moment is being cleansed off by water and going down the drain. And yeah, that's a very simple meditation that also can do wonders when you've had a very stressful day. Those are some of the tools that I've been using.
I love that. I'm going to add a couple to those, but I think those are wonderful. I also think it's so great that you found a therapist that was knowledgeable about highly sensitive people so that your therapist educated you and then was able to give you some really tangible tools. So what an amazing gift that was.
Yes, she's a wonderful person, really.
Yeah. So Shell Hamilton has a podcast called Meditation Minis. And she has like over 1 million downloads. She's amazing. So if you look on your favorite podcast app, if you go back through Unapologetically Sensitive podcast, she and I did an interview on episode 26. She actually made me cry. I had no idea that I had this thing going on and we were talking about something and she ended up kind of processing something with me and I started to cry. And then she created a special meditation just for the listeners of Unapologetically Sensitive. So that's at the end of episode 26. And then I recorded it again. I released it just as a straight meditation for episode 27. So if you just want to go straight to the meditation that she created for you, the listener of Unapologetically Sensitive. But grounding also, you can just walk outside in bare feet. That's very grounding. And another exercise, kind of an extension of what Anne-Kathrin was talking about is, you stand about with your feet shoulder length apart, and you can also put your arms like in a V up towards the sky. And you can also imagine energy coming in and filling you, from your head down and then grounding from your roots down. Using breathing is really helpful. There's box breathing where you breathe in 4, hold 4, exhale 4, hold for 4. And using your 5 senses that if you're feeling overwhelmed, 5 things in the room that you can see. What do you smell? What do you hear? What can you touch? That those are some other exercises that you can use to create a sense of grounding and calm. So, and YouTube has amazing videos. They've got videos also if you have a hard time falling asleep. They've got nighttime meditation. So lots of great resources out there. Thank you so much for that, Anne-Kathrin. Do you mind sharing a little bit more?
Well, what I also did, and it's not really a meditation, but something that I did after a tip from a podcast that I was listening to. I think his name was Sean Aker. He's a happiness expert. And he recommended to do 21 days of being grateful towards the people around you. So I basically put it on my to-do list for 21 days. And what I did, every day I contacted one person in my life that makes me happy, or that fulfills me, or that gets out my full potential. I told them what I'm grateful for in them. So I complimented them on something that they are or something they do. It felt a bit awkward in the first few days. I started, of course, with people that I found easy to contact, but after a while, I also contacted coworkers or past teachers that inspired me, and at the end, I felt so fulfilled and happy with my social surroundings. And also I realized that the people around me were so happy for getting this feedback about themselves, because I think we don't do that enough. We don't tell each other enough what we appreciate in each other. We are very fast to tell each other what we don't appreciate in the other person, but we should be so much better to compliment one another. And actually what happened to me is that after those 21 days, I started to also compliment strangers on the train, or when I was working and somebody came at my counter, I complimented them for their nice hair color, and it just comes so natural now. But nice thing about it is everybody who looks at you after the compliment smiles back at you and is happy and leaves the place happier and has a better energy. And in that way, I believe if everybody would do these 21 days of gratitude towards others, I think there would be so much more peace in the world after a few years of doing this. Yeah, that was a very great tool for me to just, look more positively also at my social surroundings.
I love that. And I really think that what we focus on and put attention on is what's going to multiply. So again, going back to if we have real feelings and situations that come up that we need to honor, we're not talking about not honoring those. We're not talking about shoving feelings under the carpet. We're not talking about denying things that make us unhappy or upset. But what we are talking about is when we've got that free space, what are we focusing on? And I think about that. I never retell stories very well, but it's an old Indian story of, the boy with the two wolves, that on his shoulder, there's an evil wolf and a good wolf. I think the child is asking his grandfather, well, what happens? It's like, well, which one are you going to feed? So where are we going to invest our time and energy and our thoughts? Do you want to feed it with gratitude and appreciation and connection? Or do you want to kind of get stuck in that place that our brains can go when we're worrying and ruminating and we're deep thinkers. And so sometimes we need to guide ourselves. And the shower seems to be the place where I'm the most aware of it, that I'll be in the shower in the morning and I'll kind of check in like, where's my mind at today? And I have a challenge going on in a personal relationship and it's triggering some things for me. And I found my mind kind of in that not really a great place. And I had to make a conscious choice this morning about where do I want to focus my energy and attention? So it's an ongoing practice. It's not a one and done type thing.
No, and I think, sorry to interrupt, I think it's also good to not shove those negative thoughts away, but to maybe write them down somewhere. They don't go away, you deal with them, but then you have them on paper and you don't have to keep thinking about them over and over and over again in your head. You just put them down somewhere, they are there, and then you can let it go, And it worked well for me. It was just something that I thought about when you talked about this.
Yeah. Also, Kristen Neff, and I'll put this in the show notes, has some meditations on her website for self-compassion where we imagine love for ourselves and then we kind of spread it out close by, further out until we go globally. And so you can also take a version of what Anne-Kathrin was talking about and do some self-compassion meditation. So does Christopher Germer. So I will put links to those in the show notes.
Yeah, great.
I'm feeling torn because I want to start asking you some of the questions that we normally talk about. And I don't know, are we ready to move on? Did you have anything else that you wanted to share around this?
Well, there's one last thing that I think is important to mention. If you want to realize change in your life, at least that's my experience, what did well for me, it is important to have a look at which people in life support your person and who support your goals and who are there for you, and where there's an equal flow of energy between you, where there's an equal exchange of energy. Look at that and surround yourself with more of those people, because they will help you to grow and realize change that you need to become more happy and to reach your dreams. And also look at your daily habits. So look at what you eat, look at how much you exercise, look at all the things that contribute to your health or that are not good for your health, and try to do less of those. And I did that, and I felt such an amazing change in my life ever since I did. So that's one final tool that I would like to share with the people before moving on.
I love those. And I think that's really important, that to look at the quality of the relationships that you have. And like Anne-Kathrin said, where is your energy going? I was just talking with a close friend about this, that when we are very aware of our feelings and have a high level of emotional intelligence, I don't mean that as a judgment, just that we're aware of how we process and how we respond to things. And we're in relationships with people that don't have that level of emotional intelligence. The analogy my friend gave is like playing tennis, that if you're a really skilled tennis player and you play with someone who's not as skilled, the person who's the skilled player needs to kind of adjust down to the person that doesn't have the skills. And that same thing happens in relationships. And I don't mean this in a judgmental way, But if we have more of that awareness and ability to communicate and articulate and to look at our stuff and what we need to do, and we're in relationship with someone that doesn't have all those skills, the responsibility is on us to kind of keep making those adjustments because the other person can't meet us at that level of skill. So the question is that working for you? And it's not that it's a good, bad thing, but is it working for you? And then when you're talking about daily habits, again, I remember Laura Carr doing a Facebook Live about what are we consuming? So in terms of, are you watching the news and is that creating negativity in your life? What are you consuming on TV? What are you physically consuming for food and beverage and exercise? So what we put in is kind of what creates our sense of reality.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great tips. There's not enough time for this podcast. I say this every time. We need a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah. Maybe do a Christmas special or something.
Maybe. What are some challenges that you experience as a highly sensitive person?
They are still there now. They have been much more present in the past, but they are still there. And the biggest challenge that I'm facing is to not go past my limits, my own limits. And also to acknowledge in time that I need to recharge my energy. And those two are connected with each other because usually I'm feeling drained and exhausted when I went past my limits and when I did not listen to my body signals and when I stayed a little bit longer just because somebody else told me to or asked me to. And that is, I think, the biggest challenge for me because I'm very much of a people pleaser. I always want people around me and especially the people that I love to be happy. I find it very tough to set limits there and to also respect my own boundaries here. That's my biggest challenge, I think, as a highly sensitive person.
And it's a process to try and figure out. There are times when I'm really clear what my limit is. And sometimes by the time I realize that it's too much, I've done some damage. And there have been times when it can take 2 to 3 days for me to recover because I just wasn't aware or paying attention to what the signals are of when I'd had enough. And once I hit that point of too much, man, it can take so much more time to recharge if we don't catch it in time.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I feel the same. It's so tough to find that point where you're just in time to respect your own boundaries and still working on that. But I think many highly sensitive people are struggling with this issue.
Yeah, definitely. What do you do for play?
Well, I have a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And since I have my dog, I go out in nature a lot. Usually for 1.5 hours a day. That is my way to recharge. And besides that, I also meditate. And if I find the time, still do gratitude. Yeah, those are my really ultimate ways to recharge my energy. And yeah, besides that, of course, I meet friends, but usually that is a different kind of getting energy. It's like getting the positive flow and exchanging ideas and just having fun, but at the end, when I come home, I'm still a bit tired from all the socializing. So that's a different kind of play.
Yeah. Dr. Elaine Aron suggests that HSPs get 2 hours of, I think she calls it quiet time a day. And to me, that my interpretation is play, things that are restorative to us, nurturing and stuff. It really does help if you have a pet that you need to walk. That my dog used to not like long walks, and now I probably spend an hour to an hour and a half walking her between her morning and evening walk. And then sometimes in the middle of the day that she's just really loving to wander. And it's really a nice way of just kind of breaking up the day.
Yeah. And for me as well, I love it so much. And she gets me out of the house, especially now since I'm an entrepreneur and working from home. I need that reminder to go out and to go away from my computer and to just go out of the situation for a while and just enjoy nature. Yeah, it helps me a lot to stay balanced and grounded. So it's very nice. I love dogs.
You have a beagle, right?
Yes.
Yep.
She's the cutest.
Can you remember something specific that someone said to you about being a highly sensitive person that felt hurtful or insensitive that you'd be willing to share?
I think it is a very standard thing, but it felt very hurtful because basically it is the essence of my person. And that is that I need to toughen up. I think it is something a lot of highly sensitive people have heard. And for me, people close to me have said that I need to toughen up, be less sensitive in order to protect myself from society. And I know the intention behind saying this was well meant because they care for me and they don't want me ever to get hurt. But at the same time, it caused me to wanting to fit in and wanting to hide away my sensitivity. And yeah, it was not really a positive thing for me to hear when I was growing up.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that is something that I understand the intention behind it, so I'm not angry about it. But it was very tough for me to hear that because, sensitivity is part of who I am and a part of my personality. So hiding away that big part makes it so much harder when you're a teenager and trying to find your place, you know?
So what would you want to tell that person today? If you could put, all the people that told you into one person, what would you say to that person?
I would tell that person that person was right when it comes to the world not always being kind, and that the world can be cruel, and that I understand that it was not meant in a harmful way. I would tell them that. But I also would tell them that sensitivity and kindness are exactly the things that will change the world for the better. And therefore, all sensitive people should show this with pride, and come together to achieve great things in society. And I don't think ever that some sensitive person should be told that they should be less sensitive ever again, because it's such a great trait to have. And I am a firm believer that sensitivity is what will change the world and what will make a more peaceful world. Because looking at the traits that a lot of highly sensitive people do have, the empathy and the intuitiveness, I think all of those aspects belong to sensitivity. So why in the world would you want to hide that away? Just because some people in the world are cruel. And that's what I would tell that person today.
I would take it a step further, that I don't need to toughen up and that my sensitivity is a gift, that I'm fine the way that I am. And I always love being able to ask other people, like, so what is it about being sensitive that bothers you? Or, what is it that you feel that you need to protect to toughen up? Like, I don't need to toughen up. So what is it that you're seeing that you would need to protect yourself against? Because really, there's nothing wrong with us. It's everybody else's projection that they put on us, and then we accept it, and we're fine. It would be like somebody telling you that, your hair color is wrong or your eye color is wrong. Like, it just is.
Yeah, it just is like it is. You can't change it. So why would you criticize it?
Yeah. What are some of your superpowers being a highly sensitive person?
For me personally, it would be my creativity. And also the fact that I'm very innovative. I really like to think of new ideas and concepts and how they could change the world. I'm really an idealistic person because of this trait. And also I think my biggest gift is that I'm very empathic. So I'm very able to feel what other people are feeling, to understand their emotions and to live with them. That's how we call it here in the Netherlands. We live with someone. So we basically step into their body and experience their pain or experience their joy or whatever emotion they are feeling. And that's, I think, the biggest gift that I do have as a highly sensitive person. And besides that, the final superpower is that I'm very intuitive. So I'm listening to my gut, and usually my gut is right. So that's a very nice superpower to have.
Yep. Highly sensitive people make great leaders because of that empathy and that ability to really tune into what people are wanting and needing and being great listeners. So I think that there's this idea that if you're highly sensitive, you can't be a good leader. I think often managers and bosses don't see these traits as being gifts and strengths. But if you look at some of the best leaders, they've got these qualities. So it's really a great thing to be a highly sensitive person.
Definitely. Never, ever doubt that you can't be a leader. I think it really depends on the circumstances that you are in. And you just, what I said, find your tribe and find the right people to surround yourself with. And then you will see that your strengths will come out. And eventually you will gain the confidence to take a step ahead and to maybe even become a leader and to try to get more people with you in this positive energy,
Yeah. And Dr. Aron says you really need to find other highly sensitive people to be around. And I think that we really are a reflection of the handful of people that we spend the most amount of time with. we're a reflection of that because we mirror it back to each other. So as we create people in our lives that really embrace our traits and see us for our strength and mirror that back to us and we mirror it to them, there's this great synergy that happens. And then it brings out the best qualities that we have.
Definitely, definitely. Ever since I've become more aware of that and surrounding myself with more people with the same vision as me, amazing things have happened in my life. And I think if everybody does that and finds their balance in life with both people and themselves, I think there would be a much happier world. I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah. And I would say that if you're internally responding, yeah, but everybody in my life, I don't have those relationships. Like, where are those people? Oftentimes the wounding from childhood, we don't know what's possible in relationships because we kind of recreate the relationships that we grew up with. So if you're finding yourself thinking like, where are those people? And that's not the type of relationships that I have, it might be time to do some healing on the wounding so that you figure out why you keep recreating those relationships that aren't working so that you can find relationships that do work. But until we do some of that work from our childhood and the wounding, we just end up being in this stuck place because we don't know that there's anything more out there for us.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
What would you tell your younger self about being a highly sensitive person?
I think it's closely related to what I would have told the other person who hurt me. And what I would tell myself is to never try to be like the others, you know what I mean? And to be... I should never try to hide away my sensitivity. That is what I would tell my younger self. And that I should just be myself and listen to my needs and my boundaries and to never overstep them to please somebody else. That's something I would tell myself.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah. I think it's a lesson that I've learned in adult age, and I would have liked to have that lesson at a younger age as well. And I hope that young, highly sensitive people who hear this podcast really take this message to them and back themselves more, because I think that's what a lot of people don't do at a young age. They look too much at what others want from them and thereby overstep their own boundaries. And that should not happen, never, because you will regret it in the future. I know it from experience.
Sure. Where can people find you? What projects are you working on?
First of all, my biggest project is HiSensitives. So if you want to find me, just type in HiSensitives on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest, or you can go to my website. There you can find me, where I post blog posts on a regular basis, and there will come much more in the future because I'm a full-time entrepreneur. So I'm very happy about that. And besides that, if you want to follow me on my personal Instagram, that's also possible. I share a lot of personal stories there and personal experiences from my life. So if you like to follow me there, of course, feel free to do so.
Is that at HiSensitives?
Oh, it's a bit a Dutch spelling, but I believe that you can find it below this podcast. It's called Anne-Kathrin 92. But it's very tough for international people to spell it. But my Instagram is in English. I do everything in English, but my name is a little bit Dutch. So
maybe you can send that to me because I can't even take a note on that.
I will send it to you. Anne-Kathrin 92 is very tough, right?
It is for this highly sensitive person.
Yes, sorry.
No need to be sorry. I'm just limited to my English. That's all I have to say. Anne-Kathrin, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I really have loved this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful.
All right, have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you found this episode helpful. I really love this conversation with Anne-Kathrin, and it's really nice to get the perspective from someone who lives basically across the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please share it with other people. If you're able to rate and review, it really makes a difference and makes it easier for people to find the podcast. If you listen to this podcast on your iPhone, there's already the app in the list where the podcasts are where you can rate it with stars and you can write a review. If you don't know how to do that, you can go to the show notes at unapologeticallysensitive.com. There are instructions and a link. Again, thank you so much for being here today. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.